here trying to put chairs on the table when we were here.
All right.
Clean up.
Where is prayer list?
Oh, Carol Gibson has passed away.
Carol Gibson.
Yeah, from 11.
Okay. I didn't announce class today, so give me a reminder, so they may have.
I was trying to think, does anybody else wish to take off?
All right. Carla's there. Lisa's there. Hello, ladies. All right. Let's say our prayers and let's get down to the nitty gritty. All right. Today we get to study Torah for the sake of heaven, for the sake of Israel and all Jerusalem. We'd like to give the merit of our study and the merit of our Torah to Stephen King, Abraham Ben Moshe Gilla, Ed Stribling, Linda Flora, Carly Searle, Brandon Walsh, Raymond Rosentrader, Brooke Gibson, Paul Navarez, Garrett Matlich, Jordan Matlich, the Patients of Texas Oncology, Rita Wilson, Betty McCuskey, Lola, daughter of Justin Lakeisha Neal, Berea Wanstaff, Elise Hagar, Nadine Freeman, Logan Willis, Billy Hope, Charles David, Rosa Honda, Christopher Berderka, Noel Cardoza, David Douglas, Vicki McLean, Savannah, daughter of Matthew and Misty Cass, Tom and Karen Maitland. Hello, Jerry. Sandra Hayes, Carol Tickle, Larry Laneberg, Juliet Navarez, Blake Hine, Briscoe, Sam Peakey, who had been Matai James London, David Jenkins, Jake Suarez, Bobby Williams Sr., Sally Talamontes, the Rogers family, Damia Washington, Carol Scott, Rabbi Richmond, Maurice Greenwood, Gracie Bill Linder, Stanley Hirsch, who he passed. We dedicated our last week's class to him. Brandy Boots, Amanda Elliott, Frank Pollard, Carol's family, Baby Denard, Michelle Magnuson, Jenna Marie, Kimberly Brown, Debbie January, Kim Lively, Crespin Rodriguez, Sandra Hurth, Virgil Williams, Brad Mace, Jocelyn Liver Nickerson, Jerry Matlis, Dylan Tickle, Amber Merchant, Simca Ben Abraham and family, Celinda Sheffields, Louis Gutierrez and family, Aaron Price, Gail McWhorter, Sonia Kinzer, Kathy Johns, John Mike Christopher Raymond, Jean Son of Jacques Coates, Nellie Warlick, Tila Buello, Miranda Roses, Jim Barfield, Naomi Simca, Ronald Whitlow, Kathleen Graham Walsh, Brandon's family, Mila Rose, Monica Johnson, Ed and Dottie Garrison, Moshe Salavechek, Donna Marie, Farrar Sajid, Benson Ewing, Darlene Younts, Debbie Henson, Anita Jones, Jessica Ross, Doug Eldridge, Bryant Welch, Gideon, Salvador Gutierrez and family, Phoebe Bridges, Jacob Ben Simca, Max Wagner, son of Marcy Wagner, Mark Malledge, Emily Baktova, Nadine Bot Miriam, Jackie Cup, Carla Manzanares, Beth Carmen, Alton Tillman, Elvia Rosas, and we got some rain in Texas, and South Africa got some rain, so all is good. All is good. There's Lisa and Teresa's on there. All right, and we are going. Does that look okay back there for y'all? Can y'all see in it? All right. Ruler of the universe and master of all masters, Father of mercy and forgiveness, we thank you, our God and the God of our fathers, by bowing down and kneeling, that you brought us closer to your Torah and your holy work. That you enable us to take part in the secrets of your holy Torah. How worthy are we that you grant us with such a big favor? Excuse me. That is the reason we plead before you that you will forgive and acquit all of our sins, and they should not bring separation between you and us. May it be your will before you, our God and the God of our fathers, that you will awaken and prepare our hearts to love and revere you. And may you listen to our utterances and open our closed heart to the hidden studies of your Torah. May our study be pleasant before your place of honor as an aroma of sweet incense. May you emanate to us light from the source of our soul to all of our being, and may the sparks of your holy servants, through which you revealed your wisdom to the world, shine. May their merit and the merit of their fathers and the merit of their Torah and holiness support us, so we shall not stumble through our study. And by their merit, enlighten our eyes in our learning, as stated by King David, the sweet singer of Israel. Open my eyes so that I will see wonders from your Torah, because from his mouth God gives wisdom and understanding. May the utterance of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart find favor before you, God, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen. All right. We are going to continue today with class number 13, Innerspace. And if you would, I'll give you a second, get your Chumash or your Tanakh or whatever, and open it up to Deuteronomy chapter 14 and have that handy. And we're going to throw some heavy Kabbalah in there too. If anybody has seen the milk and meat from last week, it will help you this week. All right, so we are on page 66 in Innerface. Page 66. And if you have to review class 12, I believe it's on there. We are at Netzach, in the second paragraph. The idea of Netzach and Hod is the question right there. Okay, so we got our little, now, when you look at this on the video, because it's on my camera, it always flips it where it's actually wrong, all right? The left is right and right's left, so. This one's Netzach, which is on the right side, on there. It's not. And then this is Hod, and then the yellow one here is Yesod. So I got a Moses and an Aaron and a Yosef for Yesod. So this is where we're dealing with in this Sephardic structure right here, right now. All right. So we are heading to talk to Yesod. Now Yesod is a good term for that is a channel, or like a this is a very good example. This is a Yesod, but it's also a channel for things to go through. And so basically Yesod is where all the Sephardic structures come and meet, and it channels everything to the Malchut. All right? It's where everything flows. All right? Now, there is male Yesod and there's female Yesod. The female Yesod is the vessel, and the male Yesod is that delivers to the vessel. So, let's start there in the second paragraph. The perfect Yesod foundation relationship, of course, is the balance between the two. Now, what it's talking about here, the perfect balance between Netzach and Hod is the relationship it has with Yesod. That is the thing that brings it balance. What is the perfect balance between Hasidim and Gubarot? Teferet. So balance is anything that's in the middle. What is the balance between wisdom and understanding? Da'at, knowledge. That's the perfect balance. The perfect Yesod foundation relationship, of course, is the balance of the two. What is important to emphasize here is that this rule holds true between man and God and man and woman. So just as there's an intimate union between man and woman, there is an intimate union between man and God. And when we get to our milk and meat here in a minute, you'll see why God says don't mix a kid in his mother's milk. Because we're not, that is not, we don't want to put that in an intimate union. All right? So, Yesod represents the most powerful bond that can exist between two individuals. At the same time, it is the ultimate attachment of man to the divine. The Baal Shem Tov explains that marital intimacy is the paradigm between man's relationship with God. The motions of the sexual act represents the balancing back and forth between Netzach and Hod, and the final cessation of the motion is Yesod. This is the act of marital zivug. All right, what do we call that? The dance of Hasidim and Guvarot. All right, the foundation is thus perfect between Netzach and Hod, and the blending of the two people in love. It is not only physical blending, but psychological blending, emotional blending. It's the perfect balance in maintaining our own identity, yet experiencing the other person's identity. And this is these two halves of one thing. All right. Now, this act here, we're going to call it cooking, because it's passion, it's fire, etc., etc. So let's stop right there just for a second, and let's grab the Tanakh. Now, if you remember last week, we studied milk and meat. All right? This is Netzach and Hod, Hasidim and Guvarot, Hesed, this is right side, left side. Okay? Now, one would think, after studying this, that these blend together. But Hashem comes to tell us there's two types of blending. There is one type of blending that is in zivug, or sexual union, and there's another type of blending that's called hiblob shoot, or the overlapping of light. This is a union, but not a zivug. One cascades over the other. Okay? Kind of like a cheese fountain. All right? You're trying to get the cheese from the top all the way to the bottom, or a chocolate fountain. All right? But don't say that if it's peanut butter that you're making chocolate and peanut butter. You still have chocolate and you still have peanut butter. All right? Even though Reese's tried to spoil our fun. So, in chapter 14 of Deuteronomy, what you're going to see is this is Moses speaking. Now, you don't have to turn, but I read last week from Exodus about the milk in 19 and 23:19. The choice of your fine fruit shall you bring to the house of Hashem your God. You shall not cook a kid in its mother's milk. That is one verse. So we can't divorce kid from its mother's milk and the first fruits in the house of God. And we went through and explained why. Now, if you look at Exodus 34:26, the first of your land's early produce shall you bring to the temple of Hashem your God. Do not cook a kid in its mother's milk. Now, in the English here, they put a period there and made it a second sentence. It's not that way in the Hebrew. It's the same verse. Okay? You found it, Russell? Exodus 34:26. You see that? Okay, so it says virtually the exact same thing. It's talking about the first and the land, and this other one
34:36
is the first fruit. Okay, one is Chokmah, one is Bina, because we're in Exodus. They're talking Atzilut when they're in Exodus. All right, but by the time we get to Deuteronomy, Deuteronomy is the Malchut. I know it's Humash. There's 5 books, but there's actually seven books in the Humash. There's actually 7 for the 7 Sefirot. All right. There's actually 2 books in 1 book. All right. But they call them not. So by the time we get here, this is Moses speaking. Now, what does Moses do? He sits here and he iterates everything that God spoke in Leviticus about eating. And if you will look in verse 21, you shall not eat any carcass, and to the stranger who is in your cities, this is the ger and the gates, this is the ger toshav, you shall give it, and he may eat it, or you can sell it to the Gentile, the nokri, okay, the goy. For you are a holy people to Hashem your God, you shall not cook a kid in its mother's milk. Right here, in this verse, there is the ger. This is a huge ger verse. This is eating the nevela. All right. Also, what we find in this verse that is completely different from the one in Leviticus is, if you'll look up here in verse 7 and 14:7, you will see the word completely separated. You see that? But this you shall not eat from among and bring up to the cud, or have a completely separated split hoof. You see that word? Completely separated, split hoof. Why does Hashem have to tell us it's a completely separated, split hoof? Why can't he just say, separated hoof? Because the word separated there does not mean separated. That's the word sheshua. This is a animal that nobody knows what it is. It has 2 spines. This is the animal called Noga. It oscillates over here, its spine over here, its spine over here, its spine over here. This is the animal of Noga. Now, the camel, the hare, and the hyrax, and these other things, these are things that elevate their cud, but are not kosher. The word here is gera. Gera means to pull along or to separate out. Now, it's not the same word as ger, but what happens is the word ger gerurim is the ger term, and it does mean to be pulled along. So it's the same word here. So this is why he brings the Noga in there, and then we have, of course, there's the pig. So you have the tip of the Yud, He Vav He, which is the 4 exiles. He's already telling them about the 4 exiles in this piece. Now, what's he doing? This is the meat side. Okay? So the meat side is the left side. Now, look in verse 9. This you shall eat everything that's in the water. So the water is all the fish side. Now the fish are in the middle. And the right side, if you'll look in verse 13, we have the Rhea, the Aya, and the Dea. The Aya and the Dea, these are added as well. So, why did God repeat all of this same piece of Torah that he put in Leviticus? Because he added these 2 things. The Noga that's in the meat and the Noga that's in the bird. Okay? Because these are on the periphery. Whereas water, can't see the evil eye, the fish, or, it's fins and scales. All right? And then right after that, he brings in, he's talking to the Jew. So he has the Jew, the Ger, and the Nokri. If we have right, left, center in the meat, in this Parsha Rhea, then guess what? We have right, left, center in verse 21. The Ger, the Jew, and the Nokri. And then he makes a statement. Don't cook a kid in its mother's milk. And we learned that this is a alchemical bonding from last week that requires heat. And we just learned that there is a sexual relationship going on here in Netzach and Hod Yesod Malchut that is passion and heat. Because if you look in verse 22 and 14:22, just like we learned in Exodus, and an angel Lord goes before you, because this one's sandwiched in where you shall tithe. Well, what's a tithe? A tithe is the tenth. What is Moshe coming to tell us here? We're talking about the 10th. This is the 10th Sefirot. So this Metatronic structure, this kid who is getting its sustenance from Bina, it's just a channel, a tube, a channel that it is going down to the Malchut. The sustenance is for here. Right, left, center. Birds, fish, meat. Ger, Jew, Nokri. All right? So when it goes down here, the sustenance is for here. Don't say that it's in a sexual union. Say it's in Hiblab Shu. It's trying to get the light down. Because if you put anything that's not supposed to be together, it causes destruction above. And if it causes destruction above, it causes superior destruction below. Don't contaminate Metatron. Even though you may think the kid and its mother, it's holy because she's holy and he's holy, it's not that kind of relationship. It's the cheese fountain. It's the cheese fountain trying to get the light down to the Malchut where it's needed. This is the secret of the vessel and the channeling of Yesod. So there are relationships where we are trying to create, and there's relationships where we're trying to sustain, trying to keep it alive, and trying to make new. There's a difference, and so everybody, this is straight up. It says Ger Toshav right there in the Torah, and you can and if you want to look in the art scroll, Rashi breaks it down. Rabbi Yehuda says, and Rabbi Meir says in your art scroll that this is called the righteous stranger. It's a really bad translation, but they call it the righteous stranger. And this is out of Pesakim 21b in the Talmud, where they're getting this from. So we have the Talmud, we have Rashi, we have the Torah, all three lining up, backing up that this is Ger Toshav. It has to be. Why? There has to be Noga, because God just put Noga in with the birds and Noga in with the meat. That is where the Noga is. All right? Because it's all for the Malchut. Now, that is a sod, a secret of milk and meat in Deuteronomy, because Deuteronomy is talking about the Malchut, and that's why the next verse says, "You shall tithe the entire crop of your plant and your produce in the field," because look what he's doing. We have animals, we have birds, we have fish, and now he goes to seed. Now you have the seed issue, okay? Because the seed is planting. Now there's certain things you don't plant together. You don't mix seeds. You don't mix din with hesed. You don't mix the klipa with the fruit. You don't put those together in a passionate union. That's what's called cooking a kid in its mother's milk. This is in Torah, it's called fire. And a lot of times you see strange fire, right? Korach got caught up in strange fire. All right? The din got in. And what happens? When the din got in, it consumed Korach. He thought he was making a great tikkun because of what he was doing, but he wasn't. All right? So, I wanted to put that piece of Torah in right here because it talks about the marital relations and the going back and forth of Netzach and Hod and creation of Yesod. Now, right there at note 10 on page 66, Yesod foundation is thus the perfect means between Netzach and Hod, the blending of the two. We covered that. All right. Third paragraph. The Sphirot of Yesod is Joseph. And so I wrote that on there for you. Yosef. Okay, I didn't use a J. I used a Y. Yosef. So this Sphirot is Yosef. The relationship between Jacob and Rachel was perfect. It was the perfect relationship. For this reason, Joseph, their son, was able to attain the level of tzaddik, righteous one. Another term for Yesod is righteous. And this is called a tzaddik. A tzaddik is someone who protects Yesod. All right? And it's also the foundation. So, when we say foundation stone is where the ark was, what did we just do? We just made a mathematical equation. The foundation, the rock, is the Yesod of Adam that's concretized in 3D. But when you put the Ark of the Covenant on it in the Holy of Holies, an ark is always a malchut. So now there was a union in the Holy of Holies, and it's fixing to explain it to us. All right? Same thing. Who was Yesod? Noah. It said he was the most righteous man on the earth. He was a tzaddik. And he went into the ark, the malchut. And boom, there was a great circumcision and all the klipa was removed. Now, for this reason, that Joseph was their son, was able to obtain tzaddik, the Holy One. The Torah tells us that the love between Jacob and Rachel describes one of the greatest loves the world has ever known. The world was created in 7 days, and Jacob worked for Rachel for 7 years. Now, let me look this up right quick. In Genesis, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth was astonishingly empty, and the darkness was upon the surface of the deep, and the divine presence hovered over the surface of the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. That word there was light, the word light there, is Gematria 238, which is Rachel. So the union that God was having, creating the whole world, who is Jacob, who is Israel, who is Adam Harishon, who is Adam Kadmon. It just goes up the ladder, is the most beautiful relationship ever. So even though you want to say it on Jacob and Rachel's level, you can go all the way back up to Genesis and see that it's a never not formula. And Rachel is right there in verse 3. So, a little tidbit of info. All right. Benjamin's portion in the Holy Land was the temple in Jerusalem. The temple where the Holy of Holies and the Ark stood with the two cherubim who were embracing each other. Now that we know what Yesod is, and now that we know we're trying to channel all this to the Malchut, because we just studied that in Milk and Meat, all right, and it takes the right, left, center, takes the whole sporadic structure to bring it down. All right, and you don't mix klipa with purity, so you watch your kashrut laws, and everybody says there is no ger toshav today. This ger toshav applies only in the land of Israel. Okay, then that means that this law of kashrut only applies in the land of Israel. So, if you are going to apply the land of the kashrut laws outside the land of Israel, you cannot divorce a single verse out of the scripture. And if you are going to keep milk and meat, and if you're going to keep the halakha of milk and meat, then you have to keep ger toshav. You can't throw ger toshav out. You cannot divorce a verse from itself. It's impossible. So those that say there is no ger toshav have just transgressed kashrut law. Anywhere you are, in the land or out of the land, because it's a part of the vernacular of the Torah and of the Talmud, Pesakim 21b, and Rashi. It's right there in your art scroll. You can read it for yourself. Now, so with the foundation and Yesod, that is the channel for everything God's doing on the earth. And so they put the Ark of the Covenant right there, and it had the two cherub on the Ark. what happened? On Yom Kippur, these two cherubim that were generally gold and sitting there came to life. And they were small. They were infants. It said they had the face of an infant. Why an infant? Because an infant's called a youth. An infant's called a na'ar. An infant's called a kid. A gedid. 17, the good kid. The tov one, Metatron. But when they're kid, they're sandalphon. And then they would grow to adults, and then they would wrap the rings around each other, and they would have union right there, and the priest would move the curtain for all of Israel to see their union. All right? And so it was the holiest time of the year. Everybody else had their shoes off, right? And because they're in union with the Holy One. This is the secret of Yesod. They were all in getting the Shefa. They were all into the Malchut. Everybody was, and who was the Tzaddik? The Kohen Gadol. He was the channel that made it all happen. All right? So, let's continue reading. Now, it just says they embraced each other, but I went ahead and told y'all what was really going on. They represent the perfect love between God and Israel. This was Benjamin's portion. The Talmud says on the holiday, the Kohanim priests and Levites would open the curtains of the Holy of Holies, and the people would see the cherubs embracing. And they would declare, see how great your love before God is. These two cherubim are the enduring embracing of one another, and it is to God's relationship with us. What are the two cherubim? Netzach and Hod. And the ark, Malchut. And the spot that it's on, and the man, the Kohen, that's Yesod. They had the whole structure right there. Now, 67. The first child born out of this love, however, is Joseph. He is referred to as the Tzaddik. Why? Because he refused to have intercourse with Potiphar's wife. That's not entirely correct, but we are going to explain what's going on here. Now, Joseph was sent to Egypt on a mission. One of the missions was the Rapak. The Rapak are the 288 fallen sparks that shattered out of the vessels of Da'at in the world of Nekudim, which we'll get to the Nekudim. That's all the points. Okay? That's the center column. So he's responsible, as Yesod is in the center column, he's responsible for that. Now he's got to mitigate that, but he's not going to give it any light. So he is having this union with Potiphar's wife, and right before the Big Bang, let's call it, who shows up? His parents. And he withdraws, and the light shoots out of his fingers. Now, he knew this needed to be done. And this light appears, this light created 10 souls. Because it was a time when the destruction of the temple, destruction of the second temple happened, which is Rachel. First temple's Leah, second temple's Rachel. That there is no more union. There is no more in and out. Dance of Hasidim and Gururot. And there is, which means there is no man, there is no living waters, there is no female stimulation. And these 10 souls are none other than Rabbi Akiva and the 10 martyrs. They literally had to sacrifice themselves to become living man for Bina, because it had dried up. And the world was fixing to flip all the way back to Tohu. Who saved it? Joseph. What did he use? The energy of the Guvurot that he extracted from Potiphar's wife to save the world in the future at the destruction of the temple. Because, hey, he's Rachel's son. You see what he's doing there? So, This is because he refused to have intercourse with Potiphar's wife, when we just explained that. What gave him the power to overcome this temptation? He saw the image of his father and remembered that he was born of the most perfect relationship that had ever existed between man and woman. Therefore, how could he ever permit himself to have an imperfect relationship? He did not mix the kid and its mother's milk. See what he's doing? The Torah presents man and woman together as comprising the image of the divine. Thus the Torah says God created man in his image, and in his image God created them, male and female, he created them. This clearly implies that male and female together form the image of God. The reason for this is obvious. Male and female are the most godlike thing possible, namely to create life. The power to conceive a child is so godlike that the Talmud says that when a man and woman create a child, God himself is their third partner. What does God have to do with it?
Everything.
He gives the soul. They create the body, God gives the soul. So they're in partnership with him. Drawing down the Shefa, they're in physical union, they're not in physical union with him. Hiblab shoot. He's lights overlapping. He's allowing that soul to enter that body. Okay? Think of someone who comes from a very good marriage where their parents in love and each other, and they love each other, and there's perfect harmony. Undoubtedly, such a person will find find it natural to love and be loved, and establish a similar relationship with their own spouse. This is the perfect Yesod relationship between a man and wife is clearly indication that they are on a high spiritual level. All right. This will remain that they will remain faithful with each other even in the face of temptation and adversity. Yesod must function in two opposite but complementary modes, namely one of absence, you guard Yesod, and one in intercourse, you use Yesod. So you are guarding Yesod, you are using Yesod both ways. You're using it by not using it, and you're using it by using it. The first mode, Yesod, is called Sadiq, the foundation of the world. The world here is Olam. Comes from the word Alam, means hidden. The Tzaddik is one who guards his purity and abstains from all forbidden sexual relationships. Therefore, Yesod, foundation, is called righteous, the Tzaddik, when the sex organ is hidden and not active. This illustration is the life of Joseph. When Joseph attained perfect Yesod foundation, when he refused to use it in a bad way with Potiphar's wife. All right? So I was asked the other day, where does the woman come in? How does the woman become righteous? If the woman is the vessel for the man, and it's and they're in union, and she doesn't use it as a manipulative tool, then she is protecting his righteousness, and that is tzedakah. That is like the same word for charity. She is receiving his righteousness, and by receiving his righteousness, she is righteous. And because she is exercising her righteousness, he doesn't go down the street with the neighbor Sally and sin. Therefore, it is accounted to her as righteousness. And so this is how that whole thing works between her Yesod, his Yesod. Now, the second mode of foundation is called Chai, or alive. Life of the worlds is said to be alive when it's doing the function of intercourse. This is an alive Yesod. So, Now let's understand who Abraham is. The word aver is the word for male phallus. And Chai is the word for it's alive. He's going to use it. So if you take Aver Chai, you have the word Avraham. Who is Abraham? Adam's living Yesod. Just love. Now we know what Abraham is, who he is, what he's doing. And who got the covenant of circumcision? Abraham. See how it works? So, the aspect of spiritual penetration is represented by Yesod. It penetrates through the hiddenness of Alamot Elyonim. Now, Joseph is the master of the attribute of Yesod in Egypt. Egypt is the klipa. Therefore, when a wife and husband are intimate, they can completely identify themselves with the divine attribute of Yesod as it unites with Malchut. They can see their pleasure as a gift of God and an experience of the deep sense of thankfulness. And their capacity to emulate the divine, a man and a woman have the power to reveal the divine purpose of creation or conceal it. When they direct this power to righteousness and spiritual holiness, they arouse an influx of divine blessing unto the world. When they pervert their mission, they cause the opposite. What happened? Abraham and Sarah were barren. Sarah was barren. But it said Abraham and the souls that he had made from the way from Haran. They were having union and they were creating souls. Right? So, what is one of the mitzvahs on Shabbat? To have marital union. Why? You're creating good souls. You're literally in 4D drawing down the 4D light and 4D union of Atzilut into your home. All right? So that's why it's one of the mitzvahs. Yesod, foundation. Yesod is if the way they're counting it here, they're not counting the upper three. They're counting the lower seven here. Yesod is the sixth. Okay? So, what happens? On the sixth day, God created man. Now we know why. And he took from the rib of Adam. What do you think the rib is? That's the Yesod. Rib is just a code name, so it doesn't sound so...
Clean language.
It's clean language of the Torah. This is due to the fact that Yesod is the seat of both spiritual and physical pleasure. Therefore, it becomes one of the main tests of whether a man will use the power to be godlike for good or evil. The power to do evil represents the orla or foreskin. Adam was originally created circumcised. It was only after he sinned that the foreskin appeared. This is why we have the bris milah, circumcision, to remove this to get back to the original state of Adam in the garden. Now, there were several other that were born circumcised. I know Elijah was. I know Moses was. I want
to say Samuel.
Maybe Samuel. There's 3 or 4 in Torah that were. Yeah. But I know those for sure. Spiritually, what does the foreskin represent?
Noah. Yeah.
Maybe Noah. Maybe Noah too.
Noah or Samuel.
Something like that. We saw that Yesod is the concept of a reciprocal relationship of giving or receiving pleasure, which should be the most beautiful and holy thing in the world. It should be sexual union should literally be the way you worship God. And the organusic light is a blip of the world to come, of the bliss of the whole orgasmic experience that comes along with that. That is what Olam Haba. So when you're building, you're either building your own Gehenna, or you're building your own Olam Haba. You know? So the more Olam Haba you build, nobody has seen, nobody knows what Olam Haba is like because you're building it. Or you're building Gehenna. Because if you're not guarding your Yesod, you're creating something in either direction. All right? You are creating because you are God-like in the midst of that. This is why spilling seed is such a huge issue.
Adam had a job co-creating with Hashem, and we are just a fractal of Adam. So of course we're going to have that dynamic.
And so once the Klippa gets on Adam, then he has to separate 130 years from Hava, which is why Jacob lived 130 years, and he's in the river emitting seed. And guess what all that emission of seed caused? The Erev Ra. The Tower of Babel, Erev Ra. Egypt, the Erev Ra. Nebuchadnezzar, the Erev Ra. Every exile, Greek and ultimately Roman. Okay? Now, spiritually, what does the foreskin represent? We saw that Yesod is, I covered that. Yet, what happens when the Orla covers it? It's called a klipa, a shell, a covering, which literally means a shell or barrier. Attaches itself to Yesod, the foundation, and prevents it from establishing the perfect bond with the Malchut or kingship. So what do you think the dome of the rock is? It's a klipa shell, because that's Yesod. They know that if you put a orla, a klipa, on that spot, it blocks all the shefa. That's what the Jews are dealing with on a daily basis. It's the klipa of the rock is really what the dome of the rock is. For this reason, it is clear. The klipa or orla can enhance the lust. It enhances the pleasure, the personal pleasure. But it diminishes emotional pleasure of the sexual relationship. Circumcision, on the other hand, decreases the lust and involves removing the orla from Yesod so that the pleasure can be spiritual, purely spiritual. Now, one of the actual, if you want to look at the Peshita, the baseline halakha of what an idolater is, it's one that has sex with animals. And the Torah says the orla makes him do it. Because that's nefesh, nefesh, nefesh. Lowest level of the soul. The animal soul. All right? Ultimately, the greatest aphrodisiac between a man and woman is love, which causes the greatest pleasure between spouse, a very deep and emotional and spiritual love between them. This is the one thing that the orla diminishes, the capacity for spiritual love. But circumcision enhances that very, very much. In the end, the physical aspect of their relationship is heightened, but it can become much purer. Thus, Yesod thus represents the greatest of human pleasure that exists. It is a type of pleasure that deals with the deepest areas of a personal psyche. So, it's all, sexuality is attached to your brain. What part of your brain? Da'at. That is only fallen da'at. So when Adam's in the garden and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, he knew everything. As soon as he knew everything and he looked at all the possibilities. This is why in the Gemara, you go through, did the guy die? Did the guy live? Was she pregnant? Was she pregnant before? Was she pregnant after? Did the kid die? Did the kid live? Now, who can she be? He's looking at all the possibilities that ever happened with Eve. And is it Sam's kid? Is it Lilith's kid? Is it his kid with Lilith? If it's Sam's kid with Hava? He's got to look at all the possibilities because it's coming from Da'at. This is called eating. Eating is union. So it is cerebral it is culinary, and it is carnality. These are the 3 C's. And so it falls on down. So now the only way to fix it is removal of the orla and bring it all the way back. So now you have sexual prohibitions, you have culinary kashrut prohibitions, and you have to guard yesod, which is, and also because that's connected to your mind. So here's how Adam is fixing the whole thing. As soon as Adam, and that's what the Talmud is, looking at every possibility. As soon as Adam quits thinking about the possibilities, it will be as if it never happened. It'll go all the way back. Because it's the 6th day. In 6,000 years, Mashiach is fixing everything. That's called Adam. 6th day, God created man. It's still the 6th day. God hasn't moved from the 6th day. The resting is coming. So every week we practice and reiterate this very thing. The whole creation process. And on Shabbat, the union, you bring in 4D into 3D. Marital union, you eat the Shabbat. You're thinking of all the different things. You are Adam rehearsing and fixing everything. And as soon as he's got it and he quits thinking about it, poof, it's only the actuated potential that we're dealing with here. It ain't none of it real. It's only real in Adam's mind. And guess what? We're the center of Adam's consciousness. So we are real. We got to really fix it. All right, jump back on. So through this act of Mila circumcision, it removes the klipa barrier from our pleasure, and therefore our desire of pleasure becomes pure holiness. Sexual desire is the one thing that is most responsible for leading a person away from God. Because of this, the evil inclination is involved in Yesod. The first sin occurred on the 6th day and was the attribute of Yesod, foundation. The fact that the relationship between man and God, which is the relationship between Yesod, is not complete yet. We have seen that the tzaddik, the righteous person, represents the Yesod foundation. And that in the world to come, the righteous sits with their crowns in their heads. What is that? So, the tzaddik will be in the world to come, and all of this will be flipped back up in the top. And Malchut will be inside. So the woman will literally be, let's call it, the Guvarot is going to be inside the Hasidim. Right now, the Guvarot's all prolapsed out because God made it Tzimtzum. So the Guvarot's kind of separated out. And that's why we go through all the hell. And that's the Holocaust, and that's school killings, and that's all the crazy stuff we see. Because the Guvarot's prolapsed out. But it's also how you create woman. How you get the Guvarot out so that God can have union with the Guvarot, like man has union with the Guvarot. And then it's going to be inside the Hasidim, and it'll be totally mitigated. Well, guess what? Your physical wife, the piece that is the other half of you, will be inside you, your crown in your head, and it will be forever bliss union. Oh, that's called Olam Haba. That's what heaven is the ultimate bliss forever and ever and ever and ever. Now, ultimately, you will be riding the wave of the Shekhinah and the Holy One's union. You'll be riding that orgasmic wave. Boom, 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 boom. And it's going to get stronger and stronger and stronger for never not. That's the bliss of Olam Haba. Where are we at here? All right, Rebbe Nachman points out that the crown, the Atara, or we call it the Teret, refers to the spirit of Keter, or the crown. In ancient Kabbalistic terms, the word Atara or Teret refers to the crown of Yesod. In other words, the glands of the sexual organ. That is called Malchut, the tip. The act of circumcision uncovers the glands, the Teret HaYesod, and removes the orla, the foreskin that covers it. And the Atara is the seat of the pleasure of Yesod, is the most sensitive part. Every man would agree. In addition, according to Jewish law, the sexual relationship is only considered to be consummated when the Atara, the glands, penetrates. Hence, this is called the establishment of the Yesod relationship. The righteous man is the foundation of the world. The tzaddik is what keeps the world alive. It is the ability for the tzaddik to channel, we'll just call it Torah, to channel Torah to the world, the light of Torah to the world that keeps the world alive. If you kill all the tzaddiks, the world will implode. This is what the 10 martyrs did. They kept the world alive. So, what happens during that time? When the 10 martyrs and all that stuff happened? Oh, we put it on the backside guy. We call him Jesus. And we say that he died to keep the world alive. You see how the backside has to use that?
Yeah. It has to mirror.
It has to mirror. But you got to have a part suf. You got to have a part suf. 3 minutes. Okay. 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Righteous man keeps the world alive. The tzaddik represents Yesod. Hence, the tzaddik is somebody who can have divine pleasure or pleasure from Yesod. Thus, the statement, their crowns in their heads, means that the organ which is normally associated with the physical becomes a means with pleasure from the divine. Why do people not want you to learn Kabbalah? Because they don't want you to pervert it. Because all of Kabbalah is extremely sexual. The Torah is extremely sexual. It's talking about creation. So they don't want the klipa coming in and making it dirty. You know? This when the temple gets here, guess what? It's going to be a big union. That's the splitting of Yesod from the east to the west, and the north to the south, and in you go. Olam haba, the world to come, can be seen as the Atara without an orla on it. So the pleasure is one of pure spiritual pleasure. The righteous are portrayed with the attribute of Yesod in their minds, and the Guvarot in with it, on top of it. Literally. The righteous person is portrayed with, they derive pleasure from the radiance of the divine presence. That's what I was saying. You're going to be so in union with the Shekhinah and the Holy One that this in and out of the Shashua that's happening is going to create a hashmal. This electricity, its best way to describe it is divine orgasm that you will ride for eternity. That's what heaven is. And we get a glimpse of it, about, 5 seconds of it? Just a blip of it.
In a microcosm.
A microcosm of it every time you have marital union. That's a piece of 4D that we have.
Because that exists, we know what you're saying is true. If it was not true, we would not have that. It wouldn't be a part of who we are.
And this is the very light sustenance that the other side tries to draw. As long as the other side can feed off of male Yesod energy, the evil exists. That's what gives it its power. 4D light. Without that, it has no sustenance. It will die. What did Balak and Balaam want them to do in Egypt? What caused the sin of the people in the desert? have sex with the Midianite girls. Poop on the idol and have sex with the Midianite girls. Right?
Curse yourself.
Yeah. And because they were literally creating the very force that would destroy them. You create your own Gehenna. I think this is a good place to stop. So, the Torah is amazing. The sages are amazing. Innerspace is pretty cool too. I'll see y'all. Next week is Purim. And so what I thought we would do is I'm going to read Megillah Esther. We're going to have a Purim party. And any of you guys who are local that want to come up and come to the house or whatever, if it's a pretty day, we're going to have it in the shop. But I will post as we go next week to have a Purim party. I'll read the Megillah Esther for class. So if you can't be with us, go get you some wine or whatever you want to drink. Tune in to our class. I'll read the Megillah Esther and you can drink with us sitting in your own living room. All right? So we'll do something like that where everybody can be involved no matter where you live across the world. All right? So Torah's amazing. Sages are amazing. See you next week for Purim. Adios, guys.
You didn't see something weird in this in this book?